All right, we are officially live on YouTube. Awesome. Okay. Um, well, hi folks. It is awesome for everybody who came out came out to our release party, kind of part two for Junpei Tarashi's Metem psychosis. These trust me, these pieces are such a treat to hear them read. Like you are definitely going to be so glad that you tuned into this. But before I hand the mic over to him, I am going to just kind of start it off with a piece of mine, as I usually do. I was telling June before we were getting started with the reading that this is just, I picked it because of the content of the chapbook, but I also picked it because it's just one of my favorite pieces to read. So, Odd Fellows Cemetery. My body is a bumper car, and that I am destined to crash. Like racing steam trains into ghost towns in the mountains, yearning to run, not walk, into the smoky ether. Right before the floor drops out, there's this part where the room is engulfed in flames, and I don't remember a bit of it after that, but it's been 15 years since I went on a thrill ride, and I'm still overcome by that vertigo twice a week at least. Back then, I couldn't scream loud enough, but I lost my voice that day, and I think it's still somewhere in the shaft. Anthracite mines burn in my hollows, deep dark space that can't help but breathe, preferring to smother instead, still kept aflame by just a thread of continued breath tunneling beneath me. It seemed okay on the surface, but below the lithosphere there is always something lying in wait. I can bet on it. Right. Also, didn't notice that Kat rolled in as I was reading that. This piece actually was published with Corporeal a couple of months ago. So, exciting coincidence. Anyway, I'm going to hand the mic over to June now. Yeah, without further ado.
Hi everyone, I'm June. Sorry for the delay as to having this happen later. I lost a bet against Baltimore City Traffic, but not today. Today I have one against Baltimore City Traffic, and now I'm here. So just to introduce the chapbook real quick. You guys might have heard this before from kind of previous times when I've talked about the chapbook. Metempsychosis is meant to be like a little exploration of how bodies and identities can be reshaped in the aftermath of trauma, in the ways that we see ourselves reflected in mirrors of natures and myths and media. The entire chapbook itself feels like a little bit of a tucking of back and forth in terms of recovery, trying to attempt to figure out how to relate to being a human again, and Nat's piece perfectly fits in that. So that was a great introduction. I hope you all enjoy the pieces I'm about to read today. I hope you all enjoy reading the chapbook. Pick it up, and let's get started. So the first piece I'm going to read is Seven Devils. This was actually inspired by my yearly reread of this very terrible manga series I cannot respectfully recommend to anyone. But it dredged up a lot of interesting feelings for me, and it was kind of the inspiration for why I wrote this chapbook in the first place. So, Seven Devils. Number 1. The lynx in stuck in bear trap in trepidation in, gnawing teeth through muscles in, the very feet that dragged it in, chews through its paws, ponders as it chalks up the tendons raw, survival and method patient, every bite measured, calculate how, drawn straight lines out the razor from Red River clotheslines to the next watery breath. Number 2. Could be the river, then the flames, and ate through tendons just as fast, eyed him off, smothering thoughts, flying rough. It happened because it was not quick, and if not quick, a victim, and a victim it failed, and it failed falling, and it happened hanging unwilling wings to the moss rock mattress of this bed. Number 3. The 7 has no gag reflex. You see, if the hunters pretend it came of no practice, then it was born just to do this, lie conforms wolves without desire to confront the violence. Number 4. The lynx glimpse of the familiar drowns, time frozen. In a neck touch, wrong word, wrong mold, wrong look, stringed wrong, the weak patters of paws still pawning off air-poured river, running through skin's sweltering shakes, and a dark that reminds of stark hands on shaking sinew. 5. 11 tells of likes and mores, but air runs out of wars, out of lies, out of air. Only so much time spending energy becoming dolls and skin sculptures. How to make the muscles move for it, in a simile of a smile. 6. Oh, how do we bleed for love? The sulky sense of sell my skin, the body sang, the salvation, the stake, stuck stuttering apologies for the deep veg, stab hard, stammering life just to label life. It's still human, though recovery molts ugly in a ripped blood and misplaced view. 7. No one knows if the lynx ever died or made the dying way back home. It's still chewing, I think. We watch, wondering wonder, wait. The next piece I'm going to read, to me, kind of feels like one of the feces of the chapbook, and I'm very fond of it. It's possibly one of my most favorite pieces that I have in the entire chapbook, and it's called Thanathos Tales. Number 1. There's a monster deep in its lake, and it's begging for something no one has to give it. The monster, ever empty with a hunger unexplainable, climbs a ladder to no destination. A school of fish tut at its Icarus disturbance, but move along. Everyone develops intimacies in dark rooms, rented to shadows, promising forevers and love yous and comfort along the white edges. Nothing in the dark can restrain the truth. Nobody will wrap their hands around your wrist, shove them down, and take you. Number 2. There's a truth you won't even admit, not even to yourself. You think too often of the same dream, stuck rewinding the same replay. In this scene, you're in the same bar, the same room, the same moment. A test car readying for the inevitable car crash, watching the decaying bodies warp around the dance floor while he, the eternal Daedalus, plays the vulture in his little plastic seat. In this scene, the clock strikes 12 and you're already painting the sheets. In this scene, home is how you remember it. The same sofa, the same smell, the same moment. The clock strikes 12 and you don't think of maybe if you weren't a slut, maybe if you didn't dress like that, maybe if you'd stayed sober, maybe if you were normal, maybe. The next scene is when the hands reach you and you slash his throat out, but the blood falls cold at your feet. The next, you punch the lights out and you don't wonder about how faggots never get happy endings. Maybe the next, you let him draw out the honey sweet talk. But the boy with his hands down your pants promised to fix you, even when you don't know what was wrong in the first place. Maybe in the next, you plagiarize his hands, relearn the words, run the same streaks through the same body and wonder if it would feel like belonging. Maybe you try to be Prometheus. Take what Zeus gave you, shatter it to little pieces, and make it subservient. Number 3. There's a monster deep in this lake, and it thinks that maybe if it were just used more, then it'll have something to blame that's not itself. It needs it, knows it's nothing without it. It does not wonder where this information came from. So that was Thanathos Tales. Next piece I'm going to read is called Beast Beats. I'm very fond of this piece. This was the first time I kind of did a lot of like fun exploration stuff. And I had written this in a class, and it was a very fun experience overall. In a lot of ways, this piece is reflective of more of the natural element of things and attempting to see yourself reflected in that sort of nature. Also, I'm really fond of fungi, so it's a fungal piece. Beast Beats. River runs blood thick in your mouth and your stomach coming apart. You want to rot in bed, but you need to be up by 6. You fall asleep and dream of itching scalps. Scratch. Hair falls out and keep scratching till grass grows green and yellow and brown. Scratch and scratch and scratch. Like you could scratch the disease out of your brain, but you never get past the skull. It grows in you. A garden. An obsession, a monster under the lake of your skin choking your organs out. Tell the lover you're sorry you love him, even when you hate the fruits of his body groaning. Lilacs amongst other seeds, the fruit of fixation. You tend to this garden, cultivated in flashbacks and dreams, in seedy bars. From your mouth birth the fault lines, vines swirling over your head, snakes caressing the shadow ceiling. You wanted to be something better broken, feeling the empty arc of body, but it never gets full, no matter how many hands tend it. River runs blood sick in your mouth and lies bloom poppies. You bite the stem, grow bad habits of falling asleep and dreaming you knew the meaning of skin and bones, and crushing cellulose between teeth. You build altars here, faceless names and nameless species, fungi wrapped around limbs. Pygmalion you are to fall in love with this here self-destruction, this reimagination, reapproximation of what you, it, is meant for, does. The next piece I'm going to read is a very short piece, and it was meant to be more of a reflection of how that exploration element can sometimes affect our relationships with other people, and this one's called Alter. A dream where I found myself down the battlefield, you, a rabbit-crazed dog, drew my blade, killed first. Guts still fresh, sweat still green on the ground of bedsheets, said, "So that's where you've been hiding my body." Throat cut. "Aren't you tired of hanging from my ribs? Your right arm coughs, sparing blood in my eyes, pull teeth of confession. I keep having to nail you back up. A dream in which your hair tied as rope, raking lines down from ceiling to floor. A dream which I cut not the neck, but snakes out, before they froze stone at the writhing curls of my wretched spleen. Searching the toilet seating dream in which I had no pretty speech, no sunset unto suicide, no wish pools of bone-sword arms begging for rapture, no knives sharpened which I'll lick, or level of longing flowing, a revelation. Dying is so much work, easing our pain, but not our desperation for which I'm not good enough." The kind of last piece that I wanted to read here is somewhat towards the end of the chapbook, and in a lot of ways in my mind it serves as a transitional point of that journey of attempting to kind of reshape identities and reshaping bodies. And this one is called Isle of Flights. If I told them everything, I think the birds would tut. Sympathy coding every titter, claiming that the world would be better off had I succeeded the first, the second, the 11th time I tried to rid this monster of its next second. Its reflection in the news, its remembrance painted in the yellow caution tape, and dusty books of horror pleading active scene of crime. Keep out, keep out, keep. We are not a long-lived species. See, the woman unnamed cries so prettily on the screen, for painting the mean floor crimson with all the parts yet untouched. The silver villain screams vengeance, spends years imploring the flesh to forget, in metamorphosis, ressuscité, until the final moment when arrives the all-knowing hero, parroting the bills of another and his best line, "Your damaged goods." And down goes the wicked wrench at his tongue, the frenzy of shock value born before convalescence. There's such a thing that gentle heroes know as a creature too broken for them to bother, no matter how much you broke her for recovery. How old were you the first time? Becoming, how can it tell that it's you? Not the blooming red, the hands shaping the legs, the desire to reshape, an amalgamation ablation into something forgivable. I become the god of my own lines, the poet of physicality. I bury the bleeding bird, the bruises, the burden. The mirror is a guest to a host of practice, every muscle twitch a prayer, every fumbling furrow another attempt at molding, a molten of something no longer human. What is this body that has endured, and what is the slumbering creature that now inhabits it? Domingos may be gone, but Prometheus is still sitting at self-made fires, laying with ghosts of other weary travelers for whom there is no direction. We call the phone line, but it never gets answered, and eventually, the ringing of the questions in our hoops of flames will tire. Eventually, we'll run out of self-cinders, and it will remain our solemn songs. Fairy tales to respect the bone of the lynx, limping, hiding the bleedings of the trap, and a desperate desire for this to not feel a fucking personal failure. So yeah, those are the pieces that I have for you all today. Thank you so much for joining me and listening to my terrible English as a third language attempt at English. And yeah, please order my chat book, Experience Suffering.
That's a really great tagline for this one, I'm not gonna lie.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming out and reading for us today. I really did not want anyone to miss the chance to be able to like hear you read these pieces. I just feel like it brings such a different life to them. So thank you for coming and reading for us today, and thank you to everybody who came out as well. Hope you enjoyed yourselves. And yes, go order all of our chapbooks. There's a digital subscription. There's a print subscription. You can buy the books individually if you're like really feeling like you wanna. I mean, no brainer. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.